Wesley,
Hey,
how
we're
are you, man?
back. I'm doing good. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah. It's nice to have the kind of creative freedom and the practical freedom to sort of do little intros and outros with you or Jessica or nobody. But yeah, you were saying that this conversation with Ryan and Jessica Wood was one that really landed for you, and that it might be fun to do a little debrief or an intro and maybe an outro too on kind of your takeaways. Even though you're the producer of it, you're also you're also a
I'm
listener.
a listener. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought, I don't know anything about therapy or much about coffee, honestly, but there's always such great lessons. And especially with this one, I just felt there was a lot of through lines that are a lot of parallels between you and Jessica's experience building Honeymoon, which I feel like I'm pretty versed in at this point, having done the podcast, but also played a small, minuscule role in the West Side store, just being around
that's
for all
right.
that. And then hearing Ryan and Jessica Wood's story with Forefront
Yeah,
Therapy?
yep.
Forefront
You got
Therapy.
it.
Okay. I
Forefront therapy. Yep.
was thinking Frontline, Forefront Therapy. And just hearing the parallels between these two things, as a young entrepreneur and as a young father was a very inspiring listen. And yeah, we've thrown around different formats for your guys' podcast, but I love when the nice couple to couple, entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs comes together and it's a great dialogue, and everybody's super enthusiastic. So I just thought it was a great listen, and yeah, I had some kind of key takeaways that I noted, but we won't spoil that for listeners right now. We'll save that for after the podcast.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the other things that probably would be helpful before we jump into it is, and that we didn't cover, was sort of how I met, Ryan and
Yes.
Jessica, which I think I remember meeting Ryan at like an entrepreneurial competition where, high schoolers will put together a pitch for some sort of entrepreneurial project that benefits the community, and I think I was a judge for that, and Ryan kind of came up and introduced himself. His name tags like Dr. Ryan Wood or whatever, and I don't know much about therapy either, and so, but we become friends. We had a lot in common, and I honestly can't remember how Jessica and Jessica got to know each other, but I think it was actually sort of separate. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, you know his wife? Oh, wait, you know her husband? And so we've been able to kind of hang out and get to know each other as couples and entrepreneurs as well. So we kind of just jumped into the conversation as if everybody sort of knew that, how we met, but we don't even remember it exactly. But yeah, and they're about to tell their story, and like you said, we can jump in on the backside, kind of to discuss, maybe some takeaways and reflections.
That sounds great. All right. Well, without further ado, this is Ryan and Jessica Wood of Forefront Therapy.
Well, I'm just gonna now we're recording because there's just some good stuff we're leaving on the table. We want to get it. Wait, off the table? I lost the metaphor doesn't work anymore. In the air. All right. So if you listen really closely, okay, all the birds stopped chirping as soon as I got silent.
I was hoping what we were listening for.
Yeah, I was hoping that like a bird would whistle exactly at that moment. Ooh. There's a new bird on the patio. Can you name that tune or name that bird?
The Woody Woodpecker.
So we're back in our studio, our patio studio, and we have a new married couple. Well, you guys aren't newly married, but you're new to the podcast.
Every day's a honeymoon for me.
Oh gosh!
Is this
Let's
your
cut
first podcast, or have you done one before?
We've done one before.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. Hypermobility.
Yeah.
Both of you together.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the pressure is on then. We need to exceed that podcast
It was
performance
a very
right
medical
now.
model podcast too.
Okay, we won't
So
be
low
going
bar?
too medical here.
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've already introduced you guys probably in the intro, and it had the title. But who would like to introduce the other first? Because I'm going to make you guys introduce the other. Should we do ladies first or age before beauty?
Fun.
And how are we introducing ourselves
No.
as her? Like, am I speaking an I for Jessica?
Also, age before beauty, because I'm older than him, so is he beauty?
I think that's the way that it... Oh, I'm buried. I'm in trouble right
I have
now.
a mustache, so the answer is yes.
That's great.
All right, well...
I'll start off.
all right.
All right. So I'll talk, not
Yeah,
as her.
introduce who
So
is this
my
lovely
wife
woman
is,
next
my
to you.
wife is Jessica. Jessica Wood. She's an occupational therapist. She's originally from Evansville. 5 generations of wonderful Schultzes all over the place. She did her high school, memorial, undergrad, and grad school at St. Louis U. Got her doctorate at Mount Mary in occupational therapy. Her specialty, doctoral research, is on sensory processing disorders and correlation of gastrointestinal dysfunction. Then she taught at USI. We did traveling therapy. Taught at USI for 8 years in occupational therapy, and decided it was time to join the practice in full at Forefront Therapy, and started the pediatric therapy operations, and now runs the pediatric therapy operations after, of course, being a wife and mother of 4 first.
I feel like you could tell as I'm staring at you what I'm thinking. Because you know what? You always love to hear people say, like, tell me about yourself. Or, like, tell me about your husband. And then you wonder, like, what they're going to...
I
What do
would
they
say
actually
Zach
say?
tells really long stories.
About you. Good ones. Well, or used to, at least.
That was a very good introduction.
It really
and Jess, you're a
was.
superstar.
Well, you made me feel really special, babe. I appreciate that.
She's
But
goofy.
there
She
you
enjoys jokes.
You know, you want to hear, like, you know... But
Personality. Well, I think that can be delivered on
Right.
answers to the podcast. Yeah.
yeah.
The pressure's on now. Yeah,
Oh, I
personality.
know.
You got me.
Time to show up.
I know. God.
All right, who's this handsome gentleman sitting next to you?
I know he's got a lot of you've got a lot of great attributes.
Thanks.
You know, he's a great dad, an awesome husband. This is
Mustache.
Ryan Wood. And he's an ENFJ. No, I'm just kidding. So Ryan Wood, you are originally from Libertyville, Illinois, up north of Chicago, and we met at St. Louis University in gross anatomy, and you got your undergrad and your doctorate degree there, and then when we moved back to Evansville for me to teach at USI, that's when he got his MHA, and we kind of started thinking about the business and thinking about how we wanted to do therapy and what made what we wanted to do different. And that's when we started Forefront Therapy. He also, I guess, you did your residency at University of Chicago. That was a cool thing. I was very proud of him. And he has his orthopedic clinical specialty. I feel like that was a good mix of, like, your
Good intro.
the medical.
Well, what
the
about all the
medical
work he
part of
did
you.
to have these 4 kids? I mean,
He does, yes.
Thank you.
you didn't do it alone, right?
Right.
This podcast could get fun.
You did. You made him really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys, we could go a lot of different places with this podcast. We can let it flow slightly, and so it'll be a little bit of your relationship as a married couple, as parents. But let's start with the entrepreneurial endeavor. So was there a moment for either of you or both of you to where you knew you wanted to start something? Did you always think that you would work for other people and progress to, like, when did things change, or did they change from when you said, this is what I want to be when I grow up, to I'm going to maybe be my own boss or start my own thing? Whoever wants to go first.
You want me to start?
Sure.
I like that question of, like, did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur? Because I don't know if I ever thought of it like that, but I do think that I grew up and my dad owned the business, and it's a real estate business, but my grandpa started it, and I think seeing him and seeing like all the hard work that goes into owning your own business, but also seeing all of the you know, you can pivot if you want to pivot, and you can do different things, and you can be creative. I think I always just thought that was what careers looked like. Like having
Even a medical career, you would
kind of.
Wow.
So you were never interested in real estate, even though
No, like everybody in my family does a form of real estate. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, I enjoy those aspects, but no, my mom's actually a nurse, and she was a NICU nurse before she became a stay-at-home mom. But I think I just always kind of. My personality's always been, I always knew what I wanted to do. I was like one of those kids. So like sophomore year of high school, I wanted to be an OT, and I
that's great.
knew I wanted to go to St. Louis University, and I was like, you know, really driven.
not just
like
the what,
that.
but the where.
Yeah, it was a 5-year master's program. I wanted to get in and get out. Like Ryan and I had been dating for like a year, and I remember exactly where we were sitting, and you know, we were sitting on a curb in St. Louis, and I was like, hey, I'm really serious about us, like, but I'm like, eventually I want to move back to Evansville. I want to open up a sensory integration clinic. This is what I want to do. Like, I've always just kind of been like that. And I think I've always kind of seen what I want things to look like. But then Ryan's the very, like, you've always been like the strong personality that can make things happen. Like, I've always, I don't know, I guess in my mind at least, I see all these things, and this is what I want, and this is how I want things to be done. And then he's like comes in with like all of the knowledge and the ability to be like, okay, we can make these things happen. Yeah, but like, here we go.
Do you struggle with, since you have such a strong vision of what you want things to be like, when you see things at your clinic like not going the way that you would do them? Do you struggle with that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a lot of letting go when you own a business, and so sometimes I'll walk in and I'm like, why is that there? Why did we not just smile when we were taking that person's order?
Right.
Well, and I think that comes from working with the team and then working with multiple locations, which I think we should get into both of those aspects of it. But I kind of want to linger on this part of like the team of you all. So she sits you down on this curb and says, all right, I'm getting serious about you, and I like you, but I've got a where that we're going to need to be, and it's in Evansville. So how did that, I'm going to call it a presentation, maybe not proposal, maybe that already happened. How did that land for you and fit into what your plans were, you know, up to that point, or maybe just before?
Much easier because she was hot and I was drunk, right? So
There was vomiting right before on the curb.
She forgot like the 6 buckets of Miller Lite right before the curb.
Strategic.
Yeah, she was
Slide
extremely
him into.
strategic.
And can you sign right
serious.
here?
Yeah. No, I had no issue. I mean, I've got an awesome family, and but I've always bounced around a bit, and her discussion was never like, this is it forever. It was, I'd at least want to trial this. And that was something that I told her that I was comfortable with, in terms of, I love that you have this vision. That's not something that's unattractive to me. If anything, quite the opposite. I like somebody that's passionate, that's strong, that has a direction with where she wants to go in life. So for me, it was not intimidating at all. So that was like, all right, let's ride with it. Plus, a lot of people say a lot of things. That doesn't mean it's actually going to get done.
Talk is cheap.
Well,
Sounds like with her it is.
yeah,
She's going to follow through with that.
yeah. No, it definitely ended up. So that's that.
Can
Did
I
you
ask?
wanna be
No, go ahead. You guys have a moment.
Well, I liked your question about like, did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because
Yeah, I wanted to
feel
build
like-
on that. Is that actually common? I don't know if maybe I used the wrong term. Like
No,
in the medical field, is it common to use the term
Yeah.
entrepreneurial? Like I'm just imagining people that say, here's this great institution or hospital system or whatever that has plenty of places to sort of go and grow up. And then there are these entrepreneurial folks who say, I'm going to start my own smaller thing and grow it from there. So, sorry, now answer.
No, I like that. I just think I don't know. I think I would love. I like that question. I like it where we're at right now because I think we've had these conversations in the past. But I think
Well, you sometimes give me a hard time because I'm always so honest, but I had no desire to open up my own practice at all. I could care less. I would have been happy doing research, teaching in a residency, being some sort of, I knew I wanted to be a leader in whatever I wanted to do, like some sort of leadership role, but I didn't have to be like the owner. That was never a top priority in my scope. I wanted to be successful, and I get antsy, and I can't be static for too long. So I think a CEO role actually fits me nicely because then I can do 50 things, especially from a small business perspective. Some things that I shouldn't, that I should delegate more, and we're getting to that position. But no, for me, it was not that. For me, it was at that time, 8 years ago, I could not find an organization that fit those desires well on what I was looking for in an organization. I wanted an organization that, served the whole community. I wanted to be able to treat one-on-one. I wanted the potential to be able to do research, because especially in physical therapy, there are a lot of outpatient models where you're not all one-on-one with somebody. Maybe you're overlapping with another patient on the back end or the front end. Maybe you're using a tech for a lot of your care, which is not illegal by any stretch of the matter, but I'm not, in my opinion, that's not a doctoral level of care. So that one-on-one model is what really suits us well, and is a big reason as to why, along with accessibility. So when we moved here, there were really no clinics in the downtown or the south side area. So that was a big issue to me when I was looking at larger organizations that were in town that were not investing back in the community to the level. I'm not saying that they weren't not doing some things that were admirable, but to me, accessibility needs to be had for everybody. So we view healthcare absolutely as a right and a privilege, a need for all humans. So I think for us, there's that kind of entrepreneurial side mixed in with social benefit and social justice. Can we blend that social enterprise in a way? But we didn't originally have like a nonprofit vision.
Well, again, that's another part that people may not know about. So the initial part, I see this overlap of like both clear co-visionaries almost of like this needs to exist. I can see it happening. And then you decide you want to create the first clinic, and it's I'm guessing the traditional model, which is a for-profit model.
Yep.
Okay. Take us back to those days. What do you remember from the decisions you had to make of how to pull that off?
Yeah. Well.
There's a lot of leap of faith, really.
Yeah. Just
education and leap of faith.
We were pregnant with our second child.
Always makes things easier. 3 heads are better than one.
Yeah. I was working out in Owensboro, so I had 40-minute plus drive each direction. I worked 4/10, so I left at 5:50 in the morning. I got back usually at 6:30. And with the young family, it was just I wasn't around a lot, and that company that I worked for was going through a lot of structural change. So the reason why I drove out to Owensboro to work one-on-one and to see certain types of sessions was not holding true. So that's really the impetus on, okay, we have a culture, we have a vision of what we want to put ourselves in to treat, this certain style and these certain types of people, and I can't find it in Evansville, so let's just make it. And that was, I think, the biggest leap of faith of like, let's just do it, let's go for it. And worst comes to worst, honestly, we have the skill set. We can find a job anywhere.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, we can find a job anywhere. So why not give it a go? At that time, we were in our 20s.
So did you quit your job and you kept teaching?
Yeah.
So one of you had...
We had one stability. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to do that in the beginning. I worked full-time plus honeymoon
Right.
for the first 5 years.
Yeah. 5 years.
It took a while.
That was actually almost on the nose. You were 7? No. That was 5.
It was 5.
Yeah.
Really?
On the nose. Yep.
That's funny.
That's the magic formula.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the where, you mentioned sort of a kind of a general downtown-ish, south side-ish. Like, how difficult was it for you to find that spot? Like, did you walk in and say, "This is it"? Did you look at several places or a mix?
You want me to take the lead on that?
Yeah, do it. We saw a lot of places.
Did a full geographic analysis and really even took data on, like, especially in the downtown where there were at that time no clinics, and South Side. All right, where are we going to get accessibility from roads? Where are we going to see folks coming in? So at that time there were 1,000 people living downtown, and there were 12,000 people that commuted in to work within a like 0.5 mile radius. So I thought, okay, all I need is 300 a year, right? 300 people, it's a full caseload. So, gosh,
10, I can see you doing this math.
This is
actually.
funny. It's very analytical, and I feel like the way that I open stores is like very intuitive. Oh, I feel this location.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'll have to get you on board the next time I'm looking at a place.
Well, we do intuitive.
We need the analysis, Ryan.
I point to Jess. We do intuitive.
I do. I walk in, I feel it.
Yeah.
And then whenever we go for it, then I get out the feng shui book, and I'm like full on, like, this is what we have to make the space work.
It took us 2 hours just to pick our colors on our logo, or 2 weeks to pick colors on our logo.
Yeah, because they had to.
It's got to be good research, and so
Yeah, there's a lot of energy that goes into that,
I love
you know,
it.
and especially if you're gonna. I mean, that can't change.
Yeah.
So I think leap of faith is one thing, but I think somebody gave me a podcast that I was listening to, and it talked about how like 1 hour of deliverables is like 10 times of prep, right? So 1 hour, it's 10 hours of prep for 1 hour of a deliverable. And I think like for us, it was like that times X amount to even be prepared to go off on our own. I mean, I did the research, and Jess and I did all that prep work before I even left the company that I was working at, you know, like, so there really wasn't anything impulsive. We worked on the nonprofit for 2.5 years before we actually opened it. So
Yeah.
I think there's leaps of faith, but being well prepared
Yeah.
and
The timing has to
analytical.
be right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Were there any clear like red flags or moments where you were just like, oh, this will definitely not work, or we don't want to do it this way, or even that initial team that did you launch with the team? You no. Okay, so it was just you at the beginning.
Well, so there was an administrative assistant that we did. She was temp through a temp agency.
Okay.
And
Don't
it did
pay
not,
those payroll taxes.
it did not. Well, I had no idea anything about management. I didn't know anything about like personnel. Didn't have a policy and procedure manual. I mean, I had nothing, right? So I'm like, gosh, we got to find somebody with some sort of something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is going to work, so I think temp's going to be better because I don't want to.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. But it did not work out well.
No.
And I'm sure she's actually going to be a very successful person, but that position just did not work out for a lot of various
She's definitely
reasons.
listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, she is for sure.
I think you need to say her name.
Yeah. Do you want like me to spell it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so
kidding.
so
You know on a
your
team.
so your first hire we can say was not a slam dunk. We'll
Our,
just we
our
won't have
first
to go.
hire was a quick fire.
Okay.
And
Hey, good practice?
yes, very good practice. So I knew that we could let somebody go.
Okay.
Learn
So you're
that.
learning lessons.
Learn that quickly. And then, out of being stubborn, because Jess was full-time at USI, right? And so then I was alone in the clinic doing all the scheduling, all the authorization checks. We outsourced through a billing company, but facilitating everything through them and the sole practitioner. I did that for 6 months. So that was hard.
Yeah.
But I learned all
lot.
of these things so well, so that when we did hire people, not only could we better train them, we could actually hold them more accountable
Sure.
because
Yeah.
we knew then all
Yeah.
the aspects of our business.
Yeah.
We knew the administrative side better. We knew the clinical side. Well, we knew that from the years before,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. And
So-
we had a newborn. Let's just throw that out there.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which so much work for Ryan.
I don't know how you did that.
Hey,
I bet that was a blur for sure.
And that was your first, right?
And I was second.
Your second. Okay, so okay,
We
you're
had a
adding to the
2-year-old
mix.
and a newborn,
And you were getting
I
your
was
doctorate.
yeah I was defending my
Oh my
doctorate.
goodness.
And I was
Oh my
and I was through my MHA. So it
Yeah.
was a lot. That was
So next
that was
you
a
guys
really
should
hard
just
time.
run for president. It'll be fine.
No, but I mean, we would study together on Friday nights. We weren't really sleeping much. Well, let's put it
Date
this way.
night was data night.
That's where thyroid issues came quickly.
Yeah.
We learned about balance to a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still kind of maybe leaning into how you grew the team, and then we'll go into how you grew the practice. So then what was your first next hire when you're like, we've got something good here, but we can grow? How did you choose to grow, and what were some of those steps like?
You can talk about it, right? Talk about it because I came on. I was one
All
day.
right.
I was
I
one
just
day
didn't
a
wanna
week
take
clinical.
over.
No, I mean I'm sure eventually I will. But I was one day a week clinical. So we hired on Ashley, and she's been great, been an awesome.
What type of role was Ashley?
Administrative assistant.
Okay,
She's still
okay.
on the team.
Okay.
Thank goodness. And
So that was the one of the clearest needs of like, here's someone we can bring on that will help
yeah,
the
because
growth.
if we're going
Because
to
you
bring
could
other
do the other
clinicians-
stuff, but you
Right.
just needed the logistical
Right.
things done for you.
Well, and time. You know,
Yeah.
we wanted our clinicians treating. You know, I mean, we're not getting paid to schedule people. We're not getting paid to, check authorization. We're getting paid to treat. So if we can have a team approach where we have other members on the team that are non-clinical on the admin side doing those aspects, then we can really grow successfully. But just, cost per minute, right?
Yeah.
Analytical side.
Well, I love the way that your mind is being mindful of this needs to be a profitable endeavor so that it can stay open, so that it can grow. And you already articulated that the whole endeavor had a mission to it. But then eventually you got to the point where you said, hey, we're going to open up a nonprofit. And you
Right.
said it was 2.5 years. So at what point did that element of it come into play, and how did it sort of change how you thought about the team and growth? And
Yeah. Well, I think so. When we started the company, we had these pillars that we felt very strongly about. Like, I feel like we had to keep coming back to. They say like if you want something to grow and you want something to continue to last, you have to keep going back to your values and like why did you start the company?
start with
and
why.
yeah, like why are you doing this? And so like we just kept going back to our core pillars every time we felt like exhausted or like
Wanted to quit.
wanted to quit. Yes. We have to just like keep going back to it. And, one of the core pillars was, quality therapy for all. And then we just felt like when it came to, and you can like go into more detail about this, but people who had a difficult time paying for therapy, if it was Medicaid reimbursement, Medicare reimbursement, underinsured, and you can definitely go into more detail, but Ryan just kept coming home. And at this point in time, I was still working full-time at USI and being clinical one day a week. And he just kept coming home every night and just being like, I just feel like there are people who I just want to serve more. These people need to be served. And what about the people who are struggling? What about the people that don't know that physical therapy can help with chronic pain? What about the people who are addicted to opioids and don't know this because, and he just, and in the middle of the night, he would wake up and I saw him like writing on a notepad. I actually got him a notepad for his birthday one
the
year
side of
that
the bed?
like had his like name on it and stuff because I was like, we need to remember these times where you like wake up in the middle of the night and he's like, this just keeps waking me up at night. And I'm like, well, those are your angels talking to you. Like those are people, like those are like, you got to hear that out, And so that's a big thing.
And that
Jump on?
necessitated a different model, like a different approach, because what you had was like a pay for service kind of thing, or what's
We build.
I'm using the wrong
commercial
words.
No, we build commercial. We build insurance, right? And the way the healthcare models are right now, you essentially, if you're all one-on-one, you're doing it well and you're doing it right, and you're focused on quality, which then builds specialization, then you have to pay specialists more than your average person with their doctor, right? So then you have a higher payroll because you have a team of specialists. And if your mission, all one-on-one care, education and research is our second core pillar. Then what Jess said was accessibility for all. So if we want to have this accessibility piece as part of our organization, and we have a team of specialists, and we're a small business, so we have no leverage negotiating contracts with massive commercial insurances, right? Because we're getting paid 40% less than, let's say, a hospital system in town for the exact same service. Actually, probably, well, more one-on-one.
Arguably better.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would hope, right?
Yeah.
There are some great quality therapists at other companies. Come to Forefront, and no, but that was the big thing. It was like, okay, so how do we hit all these goals of our mission? And I remember actually studying in the MHA, the Master of Health Administration program, and I was reading a book. The average, nonprofit hospital organization actually somehow makes more than the average for-profit hospital organization. I'm like, how the heck does that come to be, right?
It's in the name.
Seems counterintuitive. And then the professor's like, well, it should really be tax-exempt organizations, right? The term nonprofit is a little outdated because you have, nonprofits that can make a profit, but it has to go back to its mission. And that's the biggest thing. So when we're trying to solve all these answers on, okay, how do we have a team of specialists? How can we do research? Because to do research in the healthcare field, you either have to be a university or a massive, research organization, hospital. But being a nonprofit, we can apply for grants. We can do research on our own where we're not beholden to these other organizations. We can partner if we want, but we don't have to. So it gave us freedom. It gave us flexibility. State and federal income tax, and we can fundraise to then support our community health programming, our sliding fee scale programs for the uninsured. We won't bleed money serving folks with Medicare insurance because Medicare every year is cutting reimbursement more and more. That is tons of podcasts and soapbox. Because Medicare's going broke itself, so they're having to make cuts. So for us to be able to do these services, we had to find this avenue on, okay, how do we still do what we do really well and that we want to do for the whole community, but we have 4 young kids, we're young, we just don't have the resources to do it all on our own. So how do we get partners to do it with us? And that is the biggest thing. It's like, all right, a nonprofit organization allows us to partner with those that have, right? So I did a nonprofit training through Welborn Baptist Foundation. I think the coolest one of the best lessons I took from it that I still hold really dear, because I got so uncomfortable asking for help, financial help from people at first, because I'm a very proud person. And I always thought that they would spin it like I'm trying to ask money to put in my pocket, right? Which, for the first 5 years of us working on the nonprofit, I never even come close to taking a salary. Now I'm starting to take a small one because we realize that if we don't have a CEO salary, it actually negatively impacts our ability to get grants because it looks like we don't have as high of expenses. But that's different talk. Yeah. We're just like pull it together.
For me to be like, no, it's all good. It's all good information.
But the 3 things that I thought was so important was, okay, so you either find people that have financial resources, you find people that have time, or you find people that have expertise. So for me, that's a different spin on developing partners and partnership with nonprofit funding. Is you're not just asking for dollars, right? You're asking for resources. And some people don't have time, some people don't have expertise, but they do have financial resources that they can partner with you on to fulfill that mission for the community. If you really believe in what you're doing for the community, it helps.
Yeah.
Some people have coffee.
Right?
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Some
No, that's
do
spot
have
on.
coffee.
But that's our why.
So the why is it's keeping you up at night. How do we achieve this and have even more impact, especially on the accessibility pillar? And then you have to find a place. And then this is where Jessica comes in again, and she gets to walk into a potential place and
Booyah.
feel it and feel the feng shui or whatever. And so tell us about what the second location. What do you remember from choosing it, opening it, struggles, adjustments? Tell us all about that.
Second and third.
Let's just talk about all the locations. Well, the first one we went into, it was a pizza place. And I
I
walked.
ate pizza there.
Yeah, well, when we walked in, I was like, "What are you thinking?" And he's like, "No, this is great." And I was like, "It
Wait, so he could
smells-
see it, but you couldn't see it?
No, I was
You
like,
could
this,
smell it.
I was
Or
like,
you could-
this.
you
I
couldn't
was,
smell
I
it.
was so distracted by the smell, and I was like, it smells like grease. And he was like, "Do you see? Like, look, like the location, look at the parking, look at like you can see the river. Like, this is so great." And I was like, "We just got to get rid of the grease. We got to get rid of like. I mean, there was just so many things that I was like, oh my gosh." And then Ryan went in and he did like all the like like you and Justin went in and like demoed it, like totally
This is a
demoed it.
roll up your sleeves. You know, you guys aren't just contracting everything out. It's let's get
yeah.
in there and put the
Demoed
paint
it.
on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did all the demo, all the paint. We did a lot in that first one.
Oh yeah, and then with the nonprofit, it was the D. Patrick like showcase room. I don't know how to describe it, but
So when
Body
you
shop.
opened that,
Right.
was there already the clinic across the street, or has that just been a happy coincidence that all of the medical things have
Talking about
built
the
up
med
around
school?
you?
the
There's
med
also
school
like a
was there, but the deaconess
Yeah,
wasn't
the
done.
deaconess.
Oh,
yeah, the med school was there though.
No,
Because
the
it ended up-
deaconess was just finished.
It ended up
Was it
being.
really?
It
Yeah.
seems like a really good location.
Yeah. But it didn't have. It was just concrete. It had no plumbing. It had no electric.
But
building.
what did it
The
smell
building.
like?
Ew.
An
How was
auto-
the grease
a body
smell?
shop.
Let's get into
A
this.
different kind of grease.
Interesting.
2.0.
No plumbing
Yeah.
and no electrical.
No.
No HVAC, no drywall, no walls. It was
And
an
then
empty
the
shell.
upstairs
Oh, wow.
had been a storage room where like
There's your
the
grease.
windows were blocked off.
They cinder
so there was
blocked-
like
cinder blocked the
no
windows.
light had gotten into that room for like 50 years or something like that. So it
Wow.
was just, so when we brought our board up there and showed them, like, this is like our idea of like, they were like, "Is this where you're going to bring us to murder
they
us?"
say
Like, this is where I come to be murdered, because it was like
They said, "Well, we trust
dark
you."
and just like, and Ryan's like, "These wood floors, I'm going to try to keep them." And everyone's looking at him like, "What are you talking
They're like, "We can't see the
about? We can't even see the
Yeah, it's
floors."
half inch of
Dust.
Yeah. But
Like, we're gonna knock the
came
windows
together.
out. We're gonna take this roof on this addition in the 50s. We're gonna make it a terrace for fundraising.
Do you guys have pictures of all this still? Is it up on your website or anything where people kind of
That's a
see
good
like the
idea.
before and after of like the transformation?
I don't know.
We
Good
should
idea.
do that. Man.
Way to
Well,
go,
I know
Zach.
we're this
That's
isn't
what
a
I'm
visual
talking about.
medium. We're
Yeah.
trying to
Zach's
paint a
into
picture with our
storytelling.
words here. I think
Yeah.
I
It took
could
11 months to renovate that space.
Yeah.
It was in the heart of COVID. I mean, COVID was only like
Oh, well.
8 months in when we started it.
And can
Gave
I?
you something to do.
Well, they had. Well, maybe you didn't have. Yeah.
So we do stuff a lot in a very short time frame. So
Yeah.
Jess also
That's
left
kinda how
out.
we work.
Yeah.
We like do a whole bunch.
So
And then do you rest?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a rest.
or breakdown, whatever you want to call it.
working somehow stops, whether it's
Something
intended or
stops
not.
for 6 months.
I
and then
feel
it
like
all
we're kind
comes
of like that
together.
too.
Yeah.
But this year we've been in this weird like rest.
Yeah.
We don't
Good.
love it.
We're ready to.
You're ready for
find
the
some-
next honeymoon,
Find something else.
next spot,
but, yeah.
new space to
Something
open.
in
Well,
mind.
what I'm interested in, like how it sounds like as you guys are describing this, you have so much going on just with the first clinic. Like, how did you carve time in the day to do it again and keep the wheels, everything running? The first clinic, like that's the part that I'm like
and
wondering
your
how.
family life.
Yeah, and
And your relationship.
how many kids
Well-
popped out at this point?
There was 3 in
Okay.
our family.
Which 3 is a backbreaker.
One was a newborn, essentially,
Yeah.
when we started kind of the impetus. So we have a really great team. So we had 2 other clinicians on our team at the time, with Ashley, the administrative assistant on our team still. Jess had done all this work with Ascension on getting a sensory playground brought in, and she consulted on that. And we were negotiating, at that time, it had been about 2 to 2.5 years of negotiating with them about getting a clinic on site where we would run the pediatric clinic.
Okay.
When COVID hit, they kind of went silent, right? So our last counter on this negotiation, they were silent. And I was treating somebody who worked for DPAT, and I asked him about this space, and it just kind of fell into place. We're like, okay, Peds Clinic is not moving forward like we thought. It's time to roll. We're going to move forward on this nonprofit. We have to. This is the time. 2 hours after we signed the lease to the nonprofit building, Ascension emailed us that they accepted our last counter offer. 2 hours.
Wow.
And
Wow.
at that point, we had a whopping 3.1 people on the team, and 4.1, and it was a lot. So we tripled in size, and about a month before we signed that lease, we found out we had a surprise COVID baby. So we had number 4 on the way, and he's amazing, but he was a terror because he had colic.
Oh my God, you
Horrible
guys. I know. We're
colleague.
giving you all the details
Yeah.
here. But something
That's
I
what
think
people wanna know.
I know. Okay, I will tell you. I thought so many times about like, where's this energy coming from? And because I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, we've got these littles. Now we have like, one that's not even a year and a half, and we're about to have a 4th, and I'm like, what is going on? And I've thought about it a lot, and I really do think that like when you're living something that's bigger than you, like if God has a piece in it, I truly believe that like the energy comes from a different vat of energy.
Wow.
I really do think that, because I think when it came to the nonprofit, it was like there was so much just cool, like spiritual
Serendipitous.
things
Yeah.
that were going on with the nonprofit. And I really do think that way, because it's like,
It'd be fun to tell him about the balloon when we got the grant.
yeah, that would be fun. But like, but there was a lot of serendipitous things happening. But like, I just kept thinking like, where's this energy from? Like, is my thyroid off again? Like, do I have like, where is this energy coming from? And I just really think that like, when you're like living your true mission, like the energy comes from a different place. I just really feel that way.
And that's
I
not
think,
that's not nonprofit. I mean, that's anything, right? That could be any sort of path. It doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. It doesn't have, because you felt that with the PEDS clinic.
well, but I just think, and I just think that it's like one of those things where it's like I think that's probably the opposite too. I think if you're doing something that's not living your mission,
drains
That
your
it
soul.
drains you.
you're like, where I have no energy. Why can't I get my energy up? And
Tell the story that Jess alluded to about the balloon, if you would.
So the quick version of the story,
Yeah,
we had to figure out the title sponsor for our nonprofit. And that was a big way we were going to get a large donor on board. Okay, so we said, all right, we're going to give them essentially the title of the clinic will be Forefront Therapy, the blank clinic.
Gotcha.
And that was like our big, how do we catch them in? And we're going to find a foundation that synergizes with our mission, right? We'll make it work. So we found the Bronstein Foundation. We went through 3 rounds of presentations, 54-page spiral bounds for them on what we're going to do, analytical, and just tried our best. Well, we went to St. Louis. We were sitting in front of the house that we actually got engaged in.
the same curb.
I was going to say.
Yes,
the
I was
same
going to ask
effect.
if it was
Same
the
curve.
curve.
curb
And
on the
they're-
hill in St. Louis.
And they called us and let us know that they were going to be the title sponsor, like the big donor, supporter, partner, right? And it was tons of money and helped us so much. And all of a sudden, this balloon, as we're on the phone, we're sitting, this balloon floats down the hill. We're on the hill in St. Louis, floats down the hill and stops. It's a half deflated balloon. It says, congratulations.
That's crazy.
Kid you not. Kid you not. Couldn't make
It
it
was
up.
real weird.
And you were like,
So
Tears, goosebumps. Because we put, I mean, by this time, we were talking about leap of faith.
and you'd already had the 4th kid?
I was
I was just making sure it wasn't another.
No,
No,
I,
'cause
Was
it
it
was
pink
spring.
or blue?
It was spring. So I was pretty pregnant at that point.
Congratulations,
So
you can go a lot of
when I
different
had
ways.
him-
yeah, no, I think we did because we had him before it actually opened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we opened it in May. I don't know. No, it was right. It was right.
It was right.
She was
yeah,
pregnant.
I was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we were like 4 months in to the build out. So if we didn't get this big sponsor, we were going to
This
have
goes
to
back to
figure
kind of
out
the leap of
fundraising.
faith that
That
you were
was a
talking about.
big
Yeah.
leap of faith.
And then you were caught on the other end of that
Because
leap.
then you'd be adding fundraising to all your other
Right.
like, jobs
well,
that you're doing.
which we still do.
Yeah.
That is so. Yeah.
That doesn't
Night on the Terrace is September 21st.
First, it's a really cool event. We
Yeah.
have a lot of fun.
So that actually is still part of it. But it would have been a much higher need and a much higher demand because we had to renovate that entire space. We're talking a couple $100,000, right?
Wow.
So it was big.
It's a big leap of faith. Yeah.
So let's transition as we kind of close into more of like your personal relationship. Like how when you guys are looking at making decisions, how do you guys approach that? Whether it's your idea or your idea,
Fight it out?
how do you deal with because you also have a team, right? That may feel more strongly towards one of your visions or the other. We've already decided you guys are both visionaries. Talk about that.
I
They
guess
both
I
looked
guess
at
I
each
should
other.
start. I guess I should start by saying we're both Leos. Maybe that's a thing that some of the listeners would want to know.
We're both pretty strong-willed.
We're both pretty strong.
So are we.
Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
you? Okay, I have to ask this real quick. Little side question.
Yeah.
Have you ever fought in front of your team?
We recommend it.
Okay, well, the other day you did in front of somebody, you said, okay, Jess, we're going to talk about this later. And that made it, and I was like, oh, maybe somebody that could have
That's very
maybe
mature
made
of
it
you, Ryan.
sound like.
Thank you.
We had an actual
It
fight
was-
in front of us.
Tell us about it.
She's like, can we talk about this later? And I was like, nope, because I can deal with it now.
How did that
I
go?
was immature.
I mean, the person was very uncomfortable, of course.
Yeah.
So it was like, apologies afterwards. I'm so sorry that happened. This is what it's like to sometimes work for a married couple.
Right? Right.
I think it brought us together. I'm a big fan of trauma bonding, and sinister stuff to create trauma. You know, you just come out of the gate and create the trauma so you can bond over them. I'm joking.
That's wonderful.
No, but
Well,
do you guys
so-
feel that
so
that tension then
I
because you're
guarantee
co-leaders, right?
Guarantee you our team has felt tension between us before. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible not to. We try to actually do a good job of separating decision making where, pediatrics tends to roll on her side as the lead and I'm the support. And then First Street and Bronstein tend to roll a little bit more on my side and she's the support. So we do actually kind of separate. We were very intentional about that of like, we cannot be both the same
That
lead.
was part of our problem. And it actually, we're in a similar kind of pattern now because
Yeah.
now that we have Evansville Coffee too, Zach is kind of the lead on Evansville Coffee. I'm kind of the big decision maker on Honeymoon. And then it's like, we'll bounce ideas
Right.
against each other. But at the end of the day, if you're really passionate about something with Evansville Coffee, I'm like, go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I
if
think that's
I-
smart.
If
Like
I
role
want
delineation.
new countertops at Honeymoon, then that's the way we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do sort of like to settle in on passion. That is kind of the word. Like if one of us is really passionate about it and the other is just kind of like,
Whatever.
then we may just defer to the more passionate one. But then with that comes like, well, if things go awry, it looks like you're going to be the one, holding the bag.
Yeah, you got to own that
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, how do you guys do? Because I feel like for us, I feel like the arguments are more like when one of us tries to bring up work at 9:30 at night,
Oh, I feel like we always talk about work.
and it's like
We don't ever turn
We
it
don't
off,
have
really.
good
It
boundaries.
doesn't ever turn off. It doesn't turn. It's like
And it might be
24/7,
because
7
you
days
have
a week.
younger kids that it might be a little easier to do that because they just take a lot more hands-on energy, whereas our kids are older.
Right.
It's like you're showing up for their games, you're seeing them at dinner, but then they're kind of doing their own thing. So it's like we have a lot of time to
Yeah.
ruminate.
Well, for us, the kids, for us, like the candle wick can only burn so far. I mean, we have to turn it off. So we even we tried to implement about like times of the night that you cannot talk about it, right? Like, okay, if it's past 8:30, we cannot talk about it because we're both so spent because we still haven't sat down yet tonight because we
Yeah.
have 4 children and we're running around like chaos. And if we try to talk about work, it's like a 90% chance we're going to headbutt each other.
Right, like one of us is going to be like exhausted and is like, stop talking about work. Can we talk about something else other than work? And then and the other one's like, okay, sorry. And then it's like, but it's never just one person or the other.
Yeah,
it's like sometimes
we've
it's me
definitely
and sometimes
tried
it's
to do
him,
that
and-
too, where we sometimes we'll go to dinner and be like, oh, let's not talk about the business at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you guys, but then you'll get like a Slack or a message from the team, and then that just sets off like a reaction of like talking about things.
Right.
So I think we could definitely stand to be more intentional sometimes of being like, all right, turn the messages off.
That's where I'm at. I'm like, put the phone away.
Yeah.
Sure.
We don't have to have the phone out. It's past
If
8:30
you've
at
got,
night.
yeah,
even. Why is the phone even out?
Whatever that
Yeah.
sort of emergency protocol kind of thing is, yeah, if you can turn it off.
Well, for us, the joy of, I guess, our business models, we have nothing that is a now must handle after 5:30 at night. It can always be handled in the morning. There's no major urgency on that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's more just the anxiety and trying to
I
get
think
it
for
done.
us, the
and-
only
get it out
is
there.
like if an employee is calling in for the next morning, that would obviously be an issue.
Right.
If you open
Right.
at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think finding that balance of trying to
It's
disconnect some.
It's really hard.
It
It's
is.
really hard.
Well, if you were to advise any potential or current married entrepreneurs or people that work in business together, is there anything you can think of, or maybe stuff that you've shared with married entrepreneurs that has been helpful? Kind of a last word sort of thing to send people off.
Man.
Or maybe it could
Well-
even ask advice that you wish maybe someone would have prepared you for.
Whew, these are all really good questions. I definitely think it helps that Ryan and I are both so passionate about what we do. Because I think it can carry you, if that makes sense. Like Ryan's always been so passionate about, and it's about helping people, but he's always been so passionate about what, like working like orthopedics and chronic pain and hypermobility. Like he's just, and it just he continued to learn. We just can continue to grow. I just feel like you're so passionate about it. And I feel like for me, sensory integration and pediatrics has just been always such a passion. So I think it's cool that like we can come together with our passions and like start
They probably
something.
feed off of each other.
They do.
They
I know
actually
there's
ironically
definitely
really
They really
do.
do.
times where I'll be like just off or having a bad day, and he'll recognize it, and like he lifts up to like carry my bad day and vice versa.
No, and that's actually, yeah, I mean, that's a massive benefit of the married entrepreneur couple, right?
You're not truly alone.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say, I think for us, the biggest like focus points that we've always been on is communication, and because if we're actually communicating well, we can get ahead of fights and get ahead of conflict. If we get home from work, be like, hey, I'm so spent. This has to be one of those like no talk about work nights, right? Like
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
The
and
fight
we've
hasn't
learned that.
happened yet, but you know that the ingredients might be there.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly like if you
Yeah.
do it, like we're getting
Yeah.
after it. And I know it, not in the good
Yeah.
way. You know what I'm saying? So like where is the line? And I think that's
we
the
just
biggest.
crossed it.
Yeah. so that's I think the biggest like communication, but also I think having that loyalty, because I will be honest, like we went hard and heavy on a lot of like moves with the business and life that we probably had no business doing all of that at the same time. And we got away with it on some levels.
Yeah.
And we did fail on a lot of levels with taking on too much too early that we've now learned from. So I think that would be a recommendation, is like be very self-aware of what you can actually take on, not what your ego is telling you that you can take on.
Sure. Well, and like you guys had said early on, failing at the business, you still had the options of being skilled in
Professionals still,
right,
working
professionals
for
where you
someone
could
else.
get another job somewhere. But failing at a business that you did together with your spouse, does that create things that make a rockier marriage, or even like dissolving the marriage? Like that's
It could.
that's a bigger risk. With 4 kids, I mean,
Right. And it
Right.
could. And that was That was big. I mean, that was one thing we talked about. Like, we cannot let this actually get in between our marriage.
Right. I mean, we prayed. I mean, we prayed on this. I mean, there was a lot of prayer. I mean, a ton of prayer, because I'm not as spontaneous as Ryan is. Like, I'm not as like, I don't know. And he has a lot of faith, and I get nervous more. I'm like, I don't know. I get a little bit more nervous about things. And he's like, nope. I've done this whole thing. I've seen it all out. This is it's going to work. And I'm like, are you sure?
Have you become more of a risk taker though with having him as your partner? Because I feel like I was like that too.
Yes.
And then now I'm like, oh, we can open another store. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Yes. I mean, with the business,
We'll
but
get
also
through
just
it.
as a partner. Like, I mean, even just before we started dating, I was very much more so like, this is my lane, and, and we have to, and even just like, we have to study, and this is the study hours, and, and all this stuff. He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I've studied. I got this. I'm like, no. We still have another hour. We got to, and so just, as a person, he's just gotten me a little bit less,
Structured.
Yeah. Just a little more like, just have some faith maybe and
Have
taking
some
big
fun.
leaps of faith. And I like that. It makes me, it's good for, I feel like it's good for my soul. But there was just a ton of prayer that went into the whole thing, because if not, I wouldn't have.
We're both very big believers on intention, right? What is your intention on why you're doing it? If your work ethic is there and your intention is pure, if it doesn't work out, then you can be proud that it didn't work
Yeah.
out because
Sure.
of what you intended,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And if you worked
It's hard to have
your tail off
regrets
get there.
if both of those two things
Right.
are aligned. You're working
Right.
hard and you're working with the right intention.
Right.
You're not going to have a lot of regret.
But that loyalty to each other, I think, for the married couple, going back to that, it has to be like just as loyal as you possibly can, because it's so easy to get so fed up with each other at times. You guys
I
have
have no idea what you're talking about.
like maybe discussing heatedly in front of a team member, and
Right.
what we do normally is make them feel really uncomfortable, and we give each other looks, and then we go into a closed door that echoes easily, and then they hear us like,
Yeah. We're both really
Charlie
strong
Brown anger.
personalities.
Yeah.
I will say though, like, I feel like we've been talking about it a lot, and it keeps coming in my mind. So I feel like I need to tell this story. I don't know why I'm telling it. But like, we think about, so when we started the company, do you remember like 6 months in, and Ryan had this patient who was like, hey, I'm moving, but I really want to give a testimonial. And we didn't know like how to do that. Like, I was like, I guess I'll get my phone out and like take a video of you. Like, I didn't know how to do a testimonial. And so I didn't even know what to expect.
we use our camcorder, our home one.
Did we really? Is that what we did? I don't even know at that point.
Pre-cell phone videos. Whoa.
Camcorder.
Who knows? Maybe there was videos in 2016, but we used that. But so I started like video recording this guy, and he was talking, and he was saying how much he really, Ryan's changed his life. And then all of a sudden he got like kind of choked up, and he was like,
6'6", big burly guy, tattooed.
he was like, I was going to commit suicide. I thought that I was done, and I thought my life was over. I thought that I was never going to get out of bed again. But then I met Ryan, and now I'm going on hikes, and now I have life again. And it was this like moment where like I had been so like just nervous about the business. It was like 7 months in, and I was just like nervous and like, how are we going to keep this rolling? We've got this loan on the building. Like, we've got all this stuff. And I thought, wow, we got $100,000. It was like $100,000 loan on the build out or something. And I was like, so nervous. And I'm just sitting there, like, camcording this guy as he's like says this, and he's like, but now I want to live again. And all I could think about was like, if somebody came to you and said like, I'm gonna kill myself if you don't write $100,000 check, like, wouldn't you do it? And so I was just like, wow, like, even if we fail like in 2 months or in a year from now or in 2 years from now, like, maybe it was all so that like he could live. Like, who knows? You know what I mean? But like, it just felt like that was like a real pivotal
that's a
moment.
very powerful story.
He told us that at probably our lowest point of the original, like 6 month in build out,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're really up against a wall, you're really sweating and hustling. All of her family has already been through the clinic. They can't keep making injuries up to support you. And it was very much, talking about a serendipitous moment of just seeing a sign of support to support your intention. And really, any business, any aspects, you can see these signs if you're actually open to it. And I
You've
think
got a good
that was a good. You're right. That was a very pivotal point, and I think then that humbles you, and it gives you more energy.
Yeah.
In whatever you're doing.
That's awesome. You're at like a really low point, and we've
You're-
had
you're-
that
you're
too,
looking at
where
the
we were
sky.
like, "Why do we do this?
Yeah. Is it
This
worth
so
it?"
hard?"
And then you
and
get
then
an
a
answer.
customer will like just come over and tell you a story of how much the space has meant to them, and then
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, wow,
Oh, I believe it.
we'll keep going."
Right.
Thanks. You just gave me some energy for a
You
while.
have no idea how much that actually meant to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in the room and cry.
But I'll come out more energized.
So the moral of the story is let people know when they've impacted your life.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I guess that's
that
true,
actually
yeah.
really is something we could all do more of.
Yeah.
Because even if they seem confident, that could be their energy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. All right. Forefront Therapy. Where can people find
Thank
you?
Forefronttherapy.org. 812-402-0444.
What are these? What
Giving
is
the number like
You want us
it's
to send a
like-
text
like
message?
It's the radio. It's the radio.
That's a phone call. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, setting up
us.
the interview, Ryan actually called me one time. I was like, "Oh no, is Ryan okay? Because he's younger than me. There's definitely he wouldn't
likes to
call
call,
unless there was an emergency. Oh
I'm
no,
90.
He would have
he's
a
an old
flip
soul.
phone.
He uses the phone.
I actually had a flip phone until about 9 months into Forefront because Jess finally stopped she's like, you need to stop checking your email on my phone.
They
That's
make
how he is, though.
there's
He doesn't
technology
want-
that can fix this.
Well, thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
having us.
coming.
All right, let's go get refills on our non-coffee beverages, shall we?
Hey, hey.
Cheers.
Well, that's it. Thank you for listening to the show this week. The Honeymoon Coffee Company podcast is produced in partnership with the Nectar Podcast Network, with music by Sam Cuban and podcast production by me, Wesley Luttrell. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again soon.
Well, I guess if people have hung on this long, that they enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed the podcast. At least we hope so.
That's right. Absolutely.
And yeah, what was your? Because when you and I were putting together this episode, you were like, "Man, I had some actual notes and takeaways from this conversation." So now I'm kind of curious as to what those takeaways were.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this before, but as a young entrepreneur who my wife is my biggest supporter and we talk about it just 24/7, either it's what I'm up to in music or what she's doing in real estate. And we're constantly helping each other through this. So to hear them talk about their lessons and then to bounce that stuff off you guys, I just felt like there was some real almost principles or something that I took away from it. One of them was, if you're living for something bigger than yourself, energy comes from without almost, it's almost like you have this, especially as young parents who are also building something, days are long, sometimes they're heavy and it's just, you have no idea how to get through, but then something happens on the other side. Like when they were telling their story about finding the title sponsor for their nonprofit clinic, how they land it, and then all of a sudden, here comes a balloon rolling down the street that says "Congrats," and how for them that was just like a moment of they said they were just brought tears there, and they're sobbing, and it's just such joy, and I feel that as well. Just living with intention is something that they talked about a lot, and I feel that that goes in line with something that I feel that Ryan embodies a lot of, just from their dynamic, is that he's well prepared. And I wrote down, it's easier to make a leap of faith if you are well prepared. And as as co-friend fans of the epic Guy Raz podcast, How I Built This,
Yeah.
which we've talked about numerous times over the course of doing this podcast, is, I forget who exactly said it, but entrepreneurship is like jumping off of a cliff and building the airplane on the way down. And from listening to Ryan, what I was thinking was, jumping off of a cliff and building an airplane on the way down would be a lot easier if you knew how airplanes worked or how other people build airplanes, because he just seems so prepared that it helps him and Jessica make decisions or go for something and feel grounded in it, even though it is still a leap of faith.
And it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned that you don't even remember who the entrepreneur was that said that. I think I must have heard that episode as well, and I don't remember who it was. Mm-hmm. But it is kind of this principled thing of preparing for a big leap, but then it still is a leap. Like there's never a spot to where you map it out to where, oh, you know what? I actually don't even need to jump off this cliff. I'm just gonna lower myself gently, down this rope ladder or some sort of metaphor like that. Like there is a point of letting go. And I even like the airplane metaphor, because like the way that, an airplane stays up is that, it pushes against the wind, and the wind, the air actually is what lifts it back up. And that kind of ties into that sort of divine, serendipitous, the universe, whatever, you want to use to sort of label what happens when sometimes things get out of your control. And maybe the most touching part for me was the story of the gentleman who was, like truly facing, the end of his will to live. And was able to, find it again and be willing to acknowledge and encourage in, what ended up being one of their lower moments. So in the celebration moments and in the low moments, it seemed like, something else kind of met them there. And it definitely encouraged me and Jessica. And we've been kind of wondering what our sort of next big step or big, next move might be, because these two aren't slowing down. So why should Jessica and I slow down?
Yeah. Especially, it just made me think too. I don't know if everyone's called for that sort of path or that responsibility of taking things on, because it is I think at one point Jessica Wood had talked about being, $100,000 into this build out. And then I think that might've been when the guy said that, but, just being at that moment where the burden or the weight of that responsibility, I think that's the magic that I always hear between these couple entrepreneurs, is that, having a co-founder is someone to share that weight or that responsibility with, but then sharing that with if you can find the right person, I guess, to share that with while also building a life together, it seems like a home run if you can do it, but you talked about it too, that maybe there's some people to where that could be just crippling for if something doesn't work out, or, it could really put so much stress on a relationship that it might break it, but it's great to hear. It's great to hear when it's working for a couple. It's super inspiring. Yeah.
Which, and I guess that would be tough. We could probably look out there to find entrepreneurial or former entrepreneurial couples to where the stresses of the endeavor ended up, being too much. But yeah, in our case, it has been something, and obviously in their case as well, that kind of strengthens both sides of it. The relationship brings the business closer together, and vice versa. And when we feel kind of off, we address it.
Absolutely. A necessary part. So awesome. Well, I appreciate the time to discuss some of the stuff that we took away from it. And I always love kind of recapping this with you. So
yeah. Well, we'll do it again. We'll have another entrepreneurial couple next week or next month, I guess, not next week. I think we've got a couple more episodes this season, and who knows what's in store.
Amen to that. All right. Well, until next
All right, brother.
time.
We'll talk soon.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.